When we speak of the avoidant individual, we often describe distance, independence, and emotional restraint. Yet what is seen on the surface is rarely the full truth. Beneath that composed exterior lies a powerful, often unspoken longing for intensity. The avoidant does not lack desire. Rather, they fear the vulnerability that desire demands. Their distance is not emptiness, but protection. They have trained themselves to equate closeness with loss of control, so they master the art of appearing self-sufficient. However, intensity offers something different from emotional exposure. It allows them to feel deeply without having to narrate those feelings. In moments charged with presence and certainty, they can step out of analysis and into experience. This is why strong, grounded energy can be so compelling to them. It bypasses endless discussion and speaks directly to instinct. What appears contradictory is in fact deeply consistent. The one who guards their heart most fiercely often hungers most for moments that make the heart race. Intensity becomes a language they understand because it does not ask them to explain themselves. It simply invites them to feel. This hidden longing reveals an important truth about human nature. Emotional avoidance is often mistaken for indifference, yet it is more accurately a strategy for self-preservation. When someone has learned that closeness can overwhelm or disappoint, they build distance as a shield, but the shield grows heavy. Over time, there emerges a quiet craving to put it down, if only briefly. Intensity, when grounded in trust, provides that opportunity. It creates a container strong enough to hold powerful feeling without demanding immediate emotional disclosure. In such moments, the avoidant individual can experience connection without the pressure of constant reassurance or verbal vulnerability. They may never openly admit this desire, yet their response to confident presence reveals it clearly. What they resist in words, they may welcome in embodied experience. Understanding this dynamic allows us to approach them not with judgment, but with awareness. Beneath the cool exterior is not coldness, but a restrained fire waiting for conditions that feel safe enough to burn. Control is often the silent language of the avoidant individual. In daily life, they pride themselves on self-reliance, emotional regulation, and the ability to stand alone. They make decisions carefully, reveal themselves selectively, and rarely surrender their inner world without hesitation. This constant management of self creates stability, yet it also creates fatigue. When a person is always steering the wheel, there arises a quiet longing to rest. What many do not see is that beneath this disciplined exterior lives a desire to momentarily release control in a space that feels secure. The craving is not for chaos nor for humiliation, but for relief. When a partner brings grounded certainty, calm authority, and decisive presence, it can feel unexpectedly comforting. In that dynamic, the avoidant no longer has to calculate every emotional movement. They are allowed to respond rather than initiate, to experience rather than analyze. The firmness they may resist in conversation can feel reassuring in embodied connection. It communicates strength without requiring explanation. In that structure, their nervous system begins to settle. Control, which once felt necessary for survival, can gently loosen its grip. This desire to release control reveals something profound about psychological balance. Human beings are not designed to operate from a single posture of dominance or defense indefinitely. When one part of the psyche becomes overdeveloped, another part waits in the shadows seeking expression. For the avoidant, the shadow often holds receptivity, surrender, and raw feeling. When met with a partner who acts with confident steadiness, not aggression, but grounded leadership, something within them softens. They do not consciously think, "I want to let go." Instead, their body responds with relief. The paradox is striking. The individual who fears being overwhelmed may secretly crave moments where they are guided with clarity and strength. This dynamic becomes healthy only when trust is present, because trust transforms firmness into safety. Without trust, it would confirm their fears. With trust, it becomes liberation. In those moments, surrender does not mean weakness or loss of identity. It means experiencing connection without carrying the full burden of control. And for someone accustomed to holding everything together, that release can feel deeply restorative. The avoidant individual often lives in the realm of thought. Before they step forward, they assess. Before they respond, they evaluate. This habit of observation protects them from emotional overwhelm, yet it also keeps them at a distance from their own depth. Over time, the mind becomes a fortress, strong yet isolating. What is rarely acknowledged is their quiet longing to step out of that fortress, even briefly. They may not ask for emotional intensity in words, but they respond to experiences that draw them out of analysis and into presence. When connection becomes embodied and immediate, when there is no space for over-interpretation, something shifts. The constant inner commentary softens. They are no longer spectators of their own lives, but participants within them. This shift can feel both disorienting and freeing. It interrupts the loop of guarded thinking and awakens instinct. The craving is not for recklessness, but for immersion. In those moments, they are not required to articulate vulnerability. They are invited simply to feel it. The body becomes the bridge that the mind could never fully construct. There is a profound psychological significance in this movement from thought to sensation. The human psyche seeks wholeness, not one-sided development. When logic dominates for too long, instinct waits patiently in the background. For the avoidant, instinct carries the energy of spontaneity and raw presence. Intensity, when shared with trust and attunement, can anchor them in the present moment in a way conversation cannot. It interrupts defensive patterns without confrontation. Instead of challenging their walls verbally, it renders the walls temporarily irrelevant. In this state, they discover that feeling does not necessarily lead to loss of control. It can instead lead to clarity. The guarded mind learns that immersion does not equal danger. Over time, this experience can gently rewire their perception of closeness. They begin to associate connection not only with obligation or pressure, but with vitality. What they secretly crave is not drama, but aliveness. And when they are met with steady presence that invites them into the now, they taste a version of intimacy that feels immediate, grounding, and unexpectedly liberating. Beneath the composed exterior of the avoidant individual lies a complex relationship with power. Outwardly, they value independence and resist anything that feels intrusive. Inwardly, however, there is often a curiosity about dynamics where strength and softness coexist. They are not drawn to harshness for its own sake, nor to passive gentleness that demands nothing of them. What stirs their hidden longing is the meeting point between firmness and care. When a partner embodies quiet strength while remaining emotionally attuned, it creates a rare and compelling balance. The avoidant begins to sense that intensity does not automatically threaten autonomy. Instead, it can affirm it. Power, in this context, is not about control over another person. It is about grounded presence. When someone holds themselves with certainty, moves with intention, and remains steady under emotional pressure, the avoidant nervous system often responds with unexpected openness. The very energy they might resist in conversation becomes reassuring in lived experience. It communicates, without words, that strength and safety can exist in the same space. This discovery challenges their long-held assumption that closeness inevitably leads to engulfment. The deeper psychological movement here is integration. Human beings carry both assertive and receptive energies within them, yet many lean heavily toward one side. The avoidant often over-identifies with self-containment and restraint. As a result, their receptive side remains underexpressed. When they encounter a partner who confidently steps forward while still respecting boundaries, it invites this dormant side to emerge. They may not consciously articulate this desire, but they feel it. In moments where power and tenderness blend, they experience a paradox. They feel firmly engaged, yet deeply respected. This combination can be profoundly disarming. It allows them to lower defenses without feeling diminished. The guarded heart opens not through persuasion, but through the lived experience of being met with strength that does not seek to overpower. Over time, this reshapes their understanding of intimacy. They begin to see that intensity, when paired with empathy, does not erase individuality, it enhances connection. And in that balance between power and care, the avoidant finds something they rarely admit they crave, a union that feels both invigorating and secure. In the quiet landscape of the avoidant heart, words are often rationed carefully. They do not easily declare longing, nor do they quickly confess need. Yet absence of expression does not equal absence of desire. In truth, many avoidant individuals are deeply moved by actions that communicate certainty without excessive discussion. They may withdraw when confronted with intense verbal processing, but they respond powerfully to embodied clarity. When a partner reaches for them with steady intention, maintains presence without wavering, and does not retreat at the first sign of distance, it sends a message stronger than reassurance ever could. It says, "I am here, and I am not threatened by your walls." This quiet boldness can awaken something profound within them. What appears to be emotional coolness is often fear of being misunderstood or overwhelmed. When someone engages them with calm conviction, it reduces the need for defense. They do not have to explain their hesitations. They can simply experience connection unfolding in real time. The firmness of consistent action becomes a language that feels safer than dramatic declarations. There is psychological depth in this preference for action over speech. Avoidant individuals frequently learn that emotional intensity in conversation led to pressure or loss of autonomy. As a result, they trust what is demonstrated more than what is promised. When someone shows desire through grounded behavior rather than relentless dialogue, it bypasses old resistance. The experience feels direct and honest. It allows the avoidant to participate without being cornered into vulnerability before they are ready. Over time, consistent boldness from a partner builds credibility. It communicates stability. This stability becomes the soil in which their guarded feelings can slowly surface. They begin to associate closeness not with interrogation, but with shared presence. The paradox emerges again. The person who seems most resistant to overt pursuit may quietly crave being chosen with confidence, not chased in desperation, but claimed with calm assurance. In that dynamic, intensity is not threatening, it becomes affirming. And through steady embodied action, the avoidant discovers that connection can unfold without stripping away their sense of self. For many avoidant individuals, daily life is governed by restraint. They measure their responses, filter their reactions, and maintain an image of composure. Over time, this discipline becomes second nature. Yet beneath that calm surface lives a reservoir of unexpressed vitality. The psyche does not eliminate intensity simply because it is suppressed. It stores it. And what is stored seeks release in forms that feel controlled yet alive. This is why experiences charged with energy can hold secret appeal, not because they are extreme, but because they awaken dormant parts of the self. When connection becomes vivid and embodied, when it carries strength and immediacy, It offers the avoidant a rare opportunity to access feelings they normally contain. In those moments, they are not abandoning their identity. They are expanding it. The intensity acts as a catalyst, dissolving rigid self-control just enough to let authenticity surface. It becomes a safe rebellion against their own emotional restraint. What looks like toughness from the outside often conceals a longing to feel fully without having to justify the feeling. This dynamic reflects the movement of the shadow within the human personality. Every individual possesses aspects of themselves that remain hidden, not because they are dark in a moral sense, but because they were never given space to develop. For the avoidant, spontaneity, passion, and raw responsiveness often reside in that shadow. When a trusted partner introduces grounded intensity, it gently invites these qualities forward. The experience can feel both surprising and liberating. It challenges the internal belief that strong emotion inevitably leads to chaos. Instead, it demonstrates that intensity can coexist with stability. Over time, this repeated experience begins to soften the rigid boundaries they once relied upon. They discover that allowing passion does not erase self-control. It enriches it. The guarded exterior begins to crack, not through force, but through the realization that vitality is not dangerous. It is human. And in embracing that vitality, the avoidant individual moves closer to psychological wholeness, integrating the strength they show the world with the fire they have long kept hidden within. At the core of the avoidant experience lies a tension between freedom and closeness. They value autonomy deeply, often defining themselves by their ability to stand alone. Yet human beings are not designed for isolation. Even the most self-sufficient individual carries a longing to be met, understood, and felt. The conflict arises because closeness can seem like a threat to independence. As a result, the avoidant may appear detached when connection intensifies. However, beneath that retreat is often a more complex desire. They do not want to be consumed, but they do want to be engaged. They may resist overt emotional pressure, yet they respond to connection that feels deliberate and intentional. When a partner approaches them with steady confidence rather than neediness, it reframes intimacy as choice rather than obligation. In that atmosphere, intensity does not feel like a trap. It feels like a shared experience freely entered. The avoidant secretly craves moments where boundaries are crossed not in violation, but in mutual consent and awareness. Such moments demonstrate that closeness can coexist with personal space. This delicate balance between autonomy and union speaks to a deeper psychological truth. The human self grows not through rigid isolation, nor through total fusion, but through dynamic interplay. For the avoidant, growth often requires experiences that gently challenge their fear of losing themselves. When connection carries strength and direction, yet remains respectful of individuality, it expands their definition of intimacy. They begin to understand that surrender in certain moments does not equal permanent surrender of identity. Instead, it becomes an act of trust. The intensity they once associated with danger becomes reinterpreted as vitality shared between equals. Over time, this reshapes their internal narrative. They learn that stepping closer does not erase who they are. It reveals dimensions of themselves that solitude alone could never uncover. The guarded heart gradually opens to the realization that freedom and closeness are not enemies. They are partners in a dance. And when approached with awareness, even powerful moments of connection can reinforce rather than threaten the independence they cherish. The final and perhaps most subtle longing within the avoidant individual is the desire to feel chosen without being chased. They are often uncomfortable with overt pursuit that feels desperate or emotionally overwhelming. Yet indifference wounds them more than they admit. What they respond to is steady intentionality. When a partner consistently shows up, maintains presence, and expresses desire through grounded action rather than dramatic insistence, it creates a powerful internal shift. The avoidant begins to sense that they are wanted, not pressured. This distinction matters deeply. Pressure activates defense, while intentional presence invites trust. In moments where intensity is expressed calmly and confidently, the avoidant can relax into connection without feeling cornered. They may not voice this need openly, but their behavior reveals it. When they feel securely chosen, their guarded stance softens. The walls do not crumble all at once, but small openings appear. In those openings, authenticity begins to breathe. The experience of being desired without demand challenges their long-held belief that closeness inevitably comes with obligation. At a deeper psychological level, this longing speaks to the universal human need for recognition. Every individual wants to feel seen and valued for who they are, not for who they can become under pressure. For the avoidant, recognition must arrive without force. When someone engages them with composed intensity, neither retreating nor overwhelming, it demonstrates emotional maturity.